Incorporated and, of course, the West Virginia Book Festival want to welcome you here to Quest for Humor, West Virginia style panel discussion. Before we introduce the MC for the panel discussion, or panel moderator, is that your official title?
Whatever you want.
All right. I'll tell you a little bit about West Virginia Writers. How many of you, I recognize some faces in here, how many of you are members of West Virginia Writers already? Quite a few, quite a few. We've been around since 1977, and since then we've become the state's largest nonprofit, all-volunteer writers organization dedicated to both the writers of West Virginia and Appalachia in general. Every year we hold a writers' conference the second weekend of June at Cedar Lake Conference Center in Ripley. It's always an amazing time. We invite you to check out the lineup of people who are going to be coming. I believe Lee Maynard's on the docket for this year as well. But we also have a writers' contest which begins each January 2nd. But we make the debut of the writers' contest entry form here at the West Virginia Book Festival each year. And so we have both an adult contest, which has about 14 different categories in it, including the category of humor, which is one of the ones that rotates in and out and is back this year. In fact, we have three members of the panel this year who've won many awards in the humor category for West Virginia writers in the past. We also have the New Mountain Voices Student Contest for grades 1 through 12, and that is a contest that is free to enter for children from West Virginia in those grades. So we invite you to go to the West Virginia Writers table and check that out. The fellow who is going to be introducing some of the panelists here, all the panelists here today, including the winners of our contest previously, is Mr. Steve Goff. He's a comedian, actor, and writer who's taught creativity and improv workshops for over 20 years and performed for 3 decades on college campuses in comedy clubs, coffee houses, up and down the East Coast, and has appeared with folks like Jeff Foxworthy and David Brenner as well. In 2011, he was a workshop presenter at our summer conference and did several workshops on improv, and in fact led myself and Diane and Terry in some improvisation for some of the entertainment at the summer conference this past year, dragging some of us against our will onto the stage, as the case may be.
Not me. Sorry.
Steve is an improvisator as well. He actually has taken classes at Second City in Chicago and has enrolled in their writing program, and classes for that are going to start in 2012. He wrote and directed a play called Love Stinks and Other Reality-Based Observations, and that had a sold-out run at the Monongalia Arts Center. And he's an accomplished character actor as well. Clarksburg native, and he's a graduate of the West Virginia University School of Journalism and has a master's in public administration. Steve Goff, I turn things over to you.
Thank you, sir. Lies. Thank you all for coming. Great turnout. I hope you had a chance to go over to the used book sale and been to some other events today. I've got a little preamble before we get into this, and then we're going to introduce the panelists, and I've asked each of them to bring a piece of their writing to share, and we'll go from there. And I have a bit of mimic in me, and I'm from Clarksburg, and I have always thought that the Mason-Dixon line should probably be about Ripley, because when you get Ripley down, the accent gets thicker, there's grits on the menu, there's always sugar in the tea, and there's just a lot. Football is more important, so on and so forth. And I might slip into something, and I'm doing it right now, so just bear with me. When I accepted the assignment of mounting an expedition into West Virginia humor, I knew it was going to be tricky. As I dug and dug into the topic, I kept verifying to myself what I already knew. West Virginia humor is an irregular thing. And for funny, irregular is usually pretty good. Irregular words, irregular places, irregular people. Usually irregular is pretty good for funny. But when your assignment is to grab hold of something as irregular as West Virginia humor and pin it down for an hour so people can talk about it and poke at it, it's a very slippery deal indeed. I knew I was going to need some help, so I went to my first resources at home, and I have a really nice, I'm a big fan of Roy Blunt, Georgia boy, has a volume called Roy Blunt's Book of Southern Humor, and I thought, well, I'll just dig into Roy's introduction and that'll get me started. Well, and I thought it might be some help to me. But on the very first page of Roy Blunt's book of Southern Humor, it says introduction, and then the very first words of the book of Southern Humor says, introduction. Here's what I figured. The Confederacy plus Kentucky. See, right away we got a problem heading in that Southern Humor direction. Now, the Confederacy plus Kentucky. We all know our Civil War history. Yes, we were part of the Confederacy for a time, but I'd like to think we made a series of pretty good decisions and ended up in a state of our own. And I double-checked Mr. Blunt's book after that, and not one single West Virginia author in that book of Southern Humor. We didn't fit. We don't fit into a lot of things. We don't fit into a lot of regular organizing principles. Just ask the WVU athletic department about that right now. We don't fit. So then we have to go our own way, the West Virginia way. And we do it like we want to do it here in the 304. You got to see me do my hip-hop version of that, but I'll spare you. So we do have a bit of an attitude, a chip on our shoulder, and we do champion the underdog. And you know the characterization geographically. We are too far north to be southern, too far south to be northern. We're surely not eastern as it relates to literary types up and down the East Coast. We're not western. We're not even midwestern. The cheese stands alone. And we like it like that. So, I did much better research when I went to the natural Appalachia. That's where we fit. That's where the culture fits. But then I'm still wrestling with the notion, is there really something called West Virginia humor? And it got slipperier and slipperier as I looked into this. I mean, has the United States become so homogenized that we're all telling the same jokes, the same way, the same style? Or does popular culture prevail? And then there's the tricky part of what constitutes humor. Because as we know, almost everything is funny to somebody, but there's nothing that makes everybody laugh. Take, for instance, my performance so far. It's slippery and irregular. Now, we all use and enjoy humor in our personal lives, and it's part of who we are, and I'm from West Virginia, so I can't say I have a West Virginia sense of humor, but I think I do to a certain extent. But I've come up with 3 things that I think humor helps us all do. 1, it helps you get even with life. 2, it helps you live with yourself. And 3, it can keep you from going insane. But you can't pin it down or hold it down, but you can poke it. I mean, poking fun is just another name for a humor delivery system. It's just plain hard to define, and ultimately, it is truly multifaceted. West Virginia humor is wry and dark. Starting to sound like bread. It's mean and cruel. It can be uplifting and joyous, or just plain observational. And this assignment verified for me a quote that I had heard long ago, and boy, it came home truer than ever. It's from E.B. White, editor of the New Yorker, on defining humor. And he said, humor can be dissected as a frog can, but the thing dies in the process. And the innards are discouraging to any but the pure scientific mind. You see, most people really don't want to know how humor works. They're just really glad that it does. They don't want to look behind the curtain, they don't want to look under the hood, and they don't want to look at frog innards to find out what is funny. They just know it's funny. Let's see. Some writers, such as our panelists here, or many writers, you don't want to even examine your own funny, because if you look too close, you might lose your juju or your mojo or whatever it is you got going. And speaking of that frog, it reminds me of a story. It was an old guy doing his morning walk, 78, 80 years old, and a frog hops out and says, "Hey buddy, pick me up." The guy picks up the frog, and the frog says, "Kiss me and I'll turn into a beautiful blonde and I'll make crazy love to you." The old guy looks at the frog and stuffs him in his pocket. Keeps on walking. A little bit later, the frog wheels up and says, "Did you hear me? All you gotta do is kiss me and I turn into this beautiful blonde and I'll make crazy love to you." The old guy says, puts it back in. Goes a little further, and the frog finally says, "Are you nuts? Kiss me, and we were going to have crazy sex." The old guy looks at the frog and says, "You know, at my age, I'm just happy to have a talking frog." And I know how he feels. You see, I'm on a quest for humor, West Virginia style. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm about to introduce you to my talking frogs.
Oh,